Gamers, this video was made by PandaBearMe. The video name is the biggest crossover in RTS history.
Big RTS fans are discussing with each other late one night who would win between your favorite players, Hera versus Scarlet. The problem would be they would never find a satisfying answer. Each had their own strengths, but how could you compare two pros in completely different games simply tied together in the same genre? They couldn't play each other in their main games because one or the other would have an advantage. But what if they played a different game? A game they both hadn't played yet, but could start around the same time? A scenario like this happened maybe once in a decade, and with the announcement of Age of Empires 4, it became a reality. AoE 4 couldn't have come at a better time. The RTS competitive scene hasn't had a high budget game in over a decade, and the genre had more or less plateaued. A AAA game produced by Rogue Studio rushed in a lot of optimism for players who either weren't completely satisfied with the state of their game, or just wanted to try something different. Age of Empires 4 was...
I love how he says they weren't satisfied with the state of their game and shows queens versus carriers.
Completely satisfied with...
That's funny. If you're from StarCraft, you'll know peak of StarCraft.
The state of their game, but just wanted to try something different. Age of Empires 4 was potentially a fresh start. It was announced that AoE 4 would have its very first premier tournament on November 6th, just a week after the game's launch. With a whopping $20,000 prize pool, at the size of a 512-man bracket, it would be the biggest RTS bracket to date. It would be branded as Genesis, catching the attention of any competitor who had been debating on whether or not to give the new game a try. It was clear that this league would be giving it all to make AoE 4 an esport. But with Genesis being the first big tournament in Age of Empires 4, they would have to lay the foundation on how the game's rule set would look like. And they had a lot of unique problems. One of which was having to seed players from many different games without even knowing their current AoE 4 skill or how to measure it. Their solution? Seeding the top 40 players from ladder rankings, and the remaining 24 ranks by the notability in other RTS games, which essentially would create a ladder qualifier for the first 9 days of the game's launch. All things considered, it wasn't a bad plan, except with the announcement.
Wait, does this exist? That's pretty cool. Ranking over time? How does that work? I've seen this this kind of thing for like other statistics or whatever. I wonder if this what is it even called? Like a ranking system. It's basically showing ranking over time. You can see 30th of October. Oh, you can't see. Yeah, you can see 30th of October in the bottom right.
Of the tournament and their solution to seeding, it seemed to invoke a storm of problems for Genesis. Just a couple weeks before launch, after what seemed to be the end of beta and stress tests, it was revealed that there had been a third beta for creators only, which for the first week was under NDA and then the subsequent week after was lifted for creators to get a head start in content. Seems fair enough, right? Content creators needed material for the newly hyped game and needed extra time to prepare. But some people weren't just creators. Competitors who happened to also make content to keep afloat were taking full advantage of the situation to get a head start, as well as other pros who managed to opt in the closed beta with connections. What would have been a fair start to ladder qualifiers suddenly felt spoiled by the early access. But with their hands tied...
people were upset that some people got the early access and they were able to practice 3 weeks extra. I mean, I didn't play Genesis, by the way. I started playing AoE 4 when Genesis qualifiers were happening. So, I didn't know about this, but that's pretty interesting.
Genesis had no choice but to move forward with the original plan. Things wouldn't be getting any better though. As soon as the ladder qualifier launched, people were starting to see that the game didn't seem 100% complete. Weird pathing bugs, strange map generation was a common...
That's me molding! Oh god. Look what happens. So I know why this happens now, but back then I didn't. So if you have a Khan in your group with Mangudai, they try to always maintain formation, and Khan needs to be in front. So look what happens now. I click up, and what happens is these units are going to try to go around to get into the formation. And that's why I lose units.
Game didn't seem 100% complete. Weird pathing bugs, strange map generation was a common occurrence, but a player named TopCon made it his mission to find all the game-breaking bugs he could find. His biggest discovery, with the help of player Jordian, would be what people would always remember as the thing that completely ruined not only the ladder qualifier, but the ladder experience for everyone who played. So what was the bug? Mongols, as a nomadic civilization, could up and move just about any building they could make, and with this, there was an upgrade to make those buildings move from point A to point B 50% quicker. Except, for some reason, on launch, it wasn't just 50%, but 100% quicker. And for a person who boldly named themselves TopCon, it was only a matter of time until it was found out. But you might be asking yourself, so what if they can move their buildings a little quicker? What
TC Rush, baby!
Well, that's what most people thought until they saw this.
Town center.
So, I've never faced this, by the way. When I was playing, I've heard a lot of complaints about this, but I've actually not faced it a single time. And I'm kind of sad that I never got TC rushed, because I never got to experience it. This is Dark Age, by the way. This is the start of the game.
So yeah, like units will still... The arrows are so accurate, they will still hit you after you get in the building. They're just very accurate.
That's the worst part, is you can't even like fucking cancel that. I really hope there's some devs watching this right now.
You guys think that's okay? You guys think that's okay? That will be patched 100%. That's disgusting. The fact that you think that that's okay for a human to do that, you find something completely broken, you just do that every time? Nah, fuck that. He's a low-quality human being. He's not good at games. It's just completely cheese. It's just the stupidest fucking thing.
Please get in the town center. Don't just stand there. Fuck's sake, dude. I look away for one fucking second.
This is Aussie Draco, by the way.
Suddenly, what was a ladder race on who's the best quickly became who could use or avoid Mongol TC rush on ladder, with the entire ladder
But that's not true, dude. Like, I've never faced that. Marino, did you play against the TC rush? I've never faced it.
Genesis had to make a stand and report that if anyone had
We decided to ban the use of Mongolian aggressive TC strategy.
to use the strategy, they'd be blacklisted from future events. Unfortunately, the damage had already been done, and there was no way to fix it with the little time they had, but the show had to go on. Ultimately, the top players still got seated highly, just maybe not quite in the places they should have been. Telegram, fans are wondering, just maybe not quite in the places they should have been.
SE2 and AoE online players lead the top 25 beta players. The only tournament played so far was won by Striker, AoE online player. The general sentiment is the Mista, Recon, GUA, and Striker are the best 4 AoE players during stress test. Yeah, because I wasn't playing yet, okay? Calm down. I wasn't playing yet. Jesus. Striker players did well in closed beta ladder that had no real competition. Oh, that wording though. That's funny. The real sentiment among AoE 2, 3 online and Mythology for us, the Circle 2 players are one step behind, with the exception of Marine Lord and maybe the Australian SE2 pros. How the tables have turned, huh? How the tables have turned. Check Zerton interview where he doesn't mention any StarCraft 2 pros competition for the ladder race. He regards them as bad players. People are really overhyping StarCraft 2 pros. They won't do well. Well, that age is like a fine wine right there. Oh no. Oh, Pepe laugh. That aged really well.
Telegram, fans are wondering who's gonna win it all in the...
Oh shit, I missed the other ones, hold on.
In the places they should have been. Telegram.
Which players are doing better at AoE4? AoE2 or AoE3?
Fans are wondering.
AoE2 players are great at AoE2. I doubt they'll be able to compete with the AoE3 StarCraft 2 players. They will return to what they win at. Whoa! Dude, this guy predicted it. Oh my god. Dude, this guy nailed it. Holy shit. This was, by the way, posted months ago. This guy needs a shout out. Independent teamwork. Holy fuck, dude. Nostradamus. Yeah, dude. Actual Chad predicted it perfectly.
Who's gonna win it all in the big?
I'm only partly surprised because the pace of AE4 is faster, which makes it closer to StarCraft, and I'm assuming it says and Warcraft RTS, but still, where are the AoE 2 players? StarCraft 2 and AoE Online are at the top. That's super interesting. Didn't expect that at all. I figured it would just be AoE 2 and AoE 3 players.
Blood and Genesis.
The real question is how long until Cyril hits rank 1. Okay.
But people aren't...
What is the deal with Age Mythology and AoE 3 players? StarCraft 2 and AoE O players lead the top 25.
Naming names, but naming games, and who...
The Viper incoming. If Viper hits another peak, don't see anyone beating him easily. He doesn't stand a chance if tier 1 StarCraft 2 players switch scenes. Dude, it's so funny reading these old threads because it's like a blast from the past, but this only happened like 6-7 months ago.
Represents them. What game will rule them all, and what player will represent them? As time went on, fans couldn't help but speculate.
I read it
Down
for,
with
yeah.
this fresh RTS. Would they be from AoE 2, StarCraft 2, or maybe a lesser-known player from one of the other several RTS? As much as there was a time for players to prove themselves, there was a time for debate for viewers, and popularity was the only currency worth having in this debate. AoE 2 and SE2 rose.
Personally, I see AoE 2 pros claiming most of the spots for the main event. Hera, Viper, Leary, Jordan, Tato. With such a massively talented player pool, I find it hard to picture top 8 without at least 4 or 5 of them.
Top of it, the macro advantage of AoE 2 players versus the micro-oriented StarCraft 2 players. Who would have the bigger advantage in this game? The focus of debate ultimately would come down to this rivalry in a game that, frankly, people didn't even know the meta of yet. It seemed logical that Age of Empires 2 players would have an advantage playing the 4th installment of a game they know so well, especially having 4 resources when most RTS sport a whopping 2. But when it was revealed who was on the top of the leaderboards in the beta, there weren't any AoE 2 players to be found.
Okay. Lucifron Vortex, Recon, which played like multiple games, Zerton, Striker, StarCraft, Mista. Well, Mista also played StarCraft, by the way. TopCon, StarCraft. Okay.
In fact, it didn't seem like many AoE 2 players even tried to play initially, as most were skeptical it would even be competitive at all. Overall, the AoE 2 pros seemed out of position for this newly announced tournament, and it would be crunch time leading up to the qualifiers. With the tournament qualifiers starting, and a massive 512-man bracket that was to end at the round of 8 the same day it started, best of ones would be the name of the game, and it was every man for themselves, as no matter who you were, you'd have to progress the gauntlet before even thinking about getting qualified to the main event. Now, it's not completely known what distribution of game backgrounds for every player was for the open qualifier, but by the time it hit round of 64, just a few rounds before qualification, it looks something like this. Overall, a pretty expected result for many, except the die-hard fans who might have expected total annihilation. But those numbers would only get tighter as the rounds went on until there were only 8 qualified players, and some games would never make it. So, after all that, who ended up in the top 8? After everything, we have 3 AoE 2 players, 3 StarCraft 2 players, and notably 1 Age of Mythology and Age of Empires online player. Everyone who qualified for the top 8 was given just a week worth.
I didn't even know there was a top 8. Like I said, I started playing when qualifiers for Genesis were going. Like, I watched the tournament, but I didn't watch it too closely because I was still like, honestly, I was just playing Age of Empires all day. But that's really interesting that, like, who are top 8 players right now are definitely Viper, Lucifron, Marine Lord, and Vortex still. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 are still top 8 and 4 are not. I mean, I wouldn't say Kazma is really good, but I wouldn't say it's top 8, right?
The time to prepare for the round of 8 match, and the next day they would have to play not only the round of 4, but if they won, the finals as well. There's a lot to say about all 8 players and their backgrounds, play styles, and how they became the people they are. But we're just here for the finals, aren't we?
Units, veteran archers now coming in. Lucifron in a commanding loss, but now Lucifron tapping out. Viper moves through to the next round. Good game gets called.
That's pretty cool, like seeing the bracket in the games. Wait, Recon beat Hera? Poggers?
Good time, and the Mista really using it to his strength. And now we see good game.
Wow, Marine Lord lost. Omega low. Wait, did all StarCraft 2 players lose? Oh no, Vortex advanced. Oh yeah, and the Mista beat Vortex then, right?
And GG getting cold right there. Recon tapping out, realizing it was only a matter of time until those trebuchets.
Wow.
Out the town center. That puts Viper through to the grand finals, ladies and gentlemen.
There goes Vortex, and the Mista goes into the grand finals of EGC Genesis.
The Mista versus the Viper. Now I know what you're thinking, but trust me, it doesn't work. I've tried. Now you might be asking yourself, an Age of Mythology player versus an Age of Empires 2 player? I thought it was StarCraft 2 versus Age of Empires 2. How did he beat so many StarCraft 2 players to get here?
My uncle, Mr. playing StarCraft 2, so he's 1/3 of StarCraft. I love when people cope like that. Like, bro, your game lost, it's fine. Like, it is what it is.
But depending on who you ask, you might have heard he was the favorite. You see, while everyone was debating on StarCraft 2 versus Age of Empires 2, the Age of Mythology community were quietly cheering on the Mista to be the champion, and they had good reason to believe in him. The Mista started competing at a young age of 12 years old in 2004, where he was ranked top 100 in Europe in Age of Empires Conquerors. He'd go on to play many different titles such as StarCraft 2 and maintain #1 rankings in games such as Age of Empires Online and Age of Mythology. The Mista is so well known for his dominance in Age of Mythology, he's referred to as one of the 3 M, where it is said that if either the Mista, Magic, or Magyar sign up for a tournament, it will certainly be won by one of them. Despite being the Zeus god who's well known in Age of Mythology for being one of the best players who ever lived though, for the Mista, gaming is just a hobby for him. His day job is farming in northern Greece, growing nearly 500 fields of cotton and corn. It's unclear whether the Mista would have wanted to pursue pro gaming.
Dude, Marino, I was thinking that same thing. He hasn't aged at all. Like, at all.
It's clear, the Mista loved Age of Mythology. Despite playing nearly every RTS at a high level, he always came back. And as the game's popularity fizzled out, so would the Mista. Contrasting story to his opponent, the Viper. The Viper from the beginning of this tournament was AoE 2's champion. He was the GOAT of AoE 2, and he was looking for a new challenge in the form of AoE 4. How could he not win? Ever since getting back into the game in 2009, the Viper would make a name for himself. After just a couple years of playing seriously, the Viper had become well known as a strong ladder player. And in 2011, he'd have his debut major tournament in the form of World Clan League 7, after being recruited by Degal since recognizing his skill level. Slowly over time, the Viper would solidify himself as the GOAT of AoE 2, and eventually, the Viper would be able to use his tournament results and ability to make content into a career path and move to Germany in 2019. After the definitive edition, AoE 2 gained a resurgence and allowed players like the Viper to flourish in this new growth of a game that had been out for nearly 2 decades. Today, in 2022, he streams consistently on Facebook to his fans and steadily grows his stream as a professional player as well as an entertainer. 2 very similar ideals, following their passion for the game they love, but ending up in completely different life circumstances. Brought together now in a very unique scenario in AoE 4, with the drive to win on November 14th, 2021, Worlds Colliding. The series starts off with the Viper's English versus the Mrs. Abbasid. Abbasid has quickly become the Mrs.'s iconic civilization throughout the tournament, notably using siege engineering to proxy siege outside his opponent's base and push very aggressively. The Viper, on the other hand, is playing one of the most aggressive feudal
This is going to be funny seeing how the meta changed and stuff like that.
civilizations in the game. We'll be looking to end the game as quickly as possible before this Mista can get siege out in time.
Main thing that I am concerned about for the Mista, and this isn't a balance issue, this is just me being concerned, is his gold spawns. Take a look at that. He's got 3 golds up on this northern face of his base. So in the event that Viper comes in, puts a little pressure on this gold mine, he's not going to have anywhere to run.
The Viper starts off with a very quick longbowman attack, but he just can't get anything done with it.
If it comes to it, I think he's actually got enough units here to be able to put the Viper
Look at
down.
Mr. Chad.
This is just enough units to scare Viper away. He doesn't want to take the fight, but he can take the fight if he needs to. And as you said, it's all about getting that castle age, and that berry bonus helps him get a decent amount of food in, and he's going to be the first one to click up to castle age by far.
The Mista deflects everything, and ends up
Mr.
getting
Big
castle age
Brain.
much quicker than the Viper, and never lets go of his lead.
Just cleaning up all those spears on the front line. Mangonel reloading, beginning to move forward as a couple archers move back towards that
Remember
Springle, and
Mangonels?
Viper realizes he might be in trouble as he needs to get
Good
up to the
times.
castle age, and he needs to get up right now.
This is the end for Viper in game number 1, and he calls it!
GG over to the Mista, a little bit of an upset.
Game 2, the Viper's Mongols versus the Mrs. French on Dry Arabia. Mongols and French were some of the most
That was a
volatile
tower rush,
civilizations when the
wasn't
game
there?
first came out. In the start, it was believed French were by far the best civ. That was until the power of Mongols was fully realized. And by now, the Mongols' power spike was reaching its peak. And in the hands of the Viper, no one could be ready. The Viper starts the game off with a tower rush,
There it
accompanied by
is.
pikemen.
The base of the Mista, we have an outpost coming down on the opposite side of
An
the gold mine. So
outpost.
this is going to be able to defend this gold mine completely. It's going to mean that his opponent, Viper, isn't going to be able to get any guaranteed
Kick
effect
them.
from his enemies, or from his outposts.
If he extends it a little bit more to the north, it's pretty much going to prevent Viper from towering that gold mine, and he's going to have a super safe gold at the back.
The Mista expecting this has already begun defending his gold, and seemingly holds off the Viper's aggression. The Viper slowly reorientates his outpost to the wood line and keeps on the pressure.
Here come the Rams though from Viper, and this angle is more than exposed.
It's jostling for position now underneath this town center as 2 battering rams begin to batter down the hatches. We see the Knights on the front line getting skewered by their opponents as the spears manage to connect, and there's a lot of spears underneath here, but I don't know whether it's going to be enough as the scouts now get on top.
It seems like the Mista has successfully defended his base, but the Mongol economy is kicking in, and the Viper doesn't stop.
Yeah, Viper actually looking very strong right now in this Mongol matchup against the French.
Uh-oh.
And honestly, if he pushes in,
The
okay,
old
I'm actually
Springles.
thinking this might be a good game for the Mista. This is the issue. Springalds. So part of the reason why the Mongols are so damn strong at the moment is because they're able to construct this siege with their improved siege engineering. I tell you what, watching these matchups between the Mongols and the French, it really makes me start to respect the Mongols a lot more. Throughout this day, we have seen Mongols as a constant top tier pick, and I think in every single matchup against the French, they've won.
The difference is that if you look at their unit recall for Mista, it's almost non-existent, whereas if you look at Viper, it's just a flood of units, and he's doing this without the double production. And the Springboards are just tearing apart whatever has left of Mista's army. He taps out, and Viper evens the series.
Beautiful.
Maybe it was the Mista being rusty from not playing a tournament in a while, or maybe he was not being used to long hours in a row. But this would be the beginning of a couple more losses for the Mista, ultimately putting the Viper 3-1 in the series, seemingly getting the upper hand in every game through tactics. Now the Mista would be at game point, having to win the next 3 games if he's going to win Genesis. Game 5, the Viper's Rus versus the Mista's Mongols on Mongolian Heights. Both players start with the dock, but the elephant in the room is Mongols on a hybrid map means a lot of aggression. Rus having a unique ability to fish without a dock means that the Viper can still use his boats, but without any way to make more boats, the Mista ultimately gets water control. Subsequently, the Mista finishes the game with his iconic siege push to end.
Oh my
So many
god.
Springalds out on the field because of those men-at-arms. They're able to produce them incredibly fast. Now going to be taking down that Springald tower.
In this game very, very safely. He never overcommitted, and for now he's going to wait as well to go into Imperial, but Viper says no, it's over.
Viper just tapping out. His opponent doesn't even get the chance to finish him off.
Game 6, the Viper's Abbasid versus the Mrs. French on Hillendale. Hillendale is a very closed-off map.
Oh
It leads
god,
to a
look
very
at that base
castle-focused
spawn.
game.
What the
It would be
fuck?
perfect for the Viper since he's playing Abbasid, a very strong civ for siege pushing early on, something that the Mist is known for doing. The Mista, though, in response picks French, a civilization that's usually known for their feudal rather than a castle age. Everyone is wondering, what's the Mista got up his sleeve? Does the Mista have the answer for the strong timing that no one's figured out yet?
At the moment, the Mister sitting on 105 stone. Is he gathering up more? Oh my lord, is Mister doing it? Is he going for a triple TC with the French? Is that even legal?
And it looks
Hell
like
yeah,
the second
bro.
layer of walls coming in. Now the thing I'm thinking more and more with that stone being gathered is
Double
that
layer.
even if you drop a third TC, which seems likely now with those resources, you could still keep some of your villagers on stone. And if you remember the Border Bay game, Mista actually went for stone walls and the defensive towers on it with Springalds. That could also work, stopping the aggression from Viper.
It is. This is beautiful. This is artwork right now. We are witnessing right now
what?
the pinnacle of Age of Empires meta.
Wait, what the fuck is this? Wait, what?
Developing right before our eyes. Does he spot? Oh, let's go. He spots out the first segment. Does he spot out the second segment though? Because that's going to be the giveaway. He does spot out the second segment. So maybe he looks at that and realizes, hold on a minute.
Oh, he's building
He
a
thinks I'm going to
stone
go
vault.
for a Springle timing push. I'm going to add a town center behind it. And I'm going to go for 3 TCs. We have got the battle of the brains right now, Lidacor.
The Viper snipped
Oh
out
my
and
god, his
quickly
base
took a
is
third TC
going.
lead in the Mista with defense that wouldn't be helping anything. With the Viper's economy booming, all was left was to take control of the map, slowly but surely spreading over like a Viper.
If you just look at the army numbers, that also looks quite promising for Viper. Mista at 54, Viper
Wait, how could people after this game from Mista tell me that I made too many walls? I've never... Listen, I have never made a stone wall tower inside of my own base. Never happened, okay?
at 66.
And keep in mind, Viper is up in the Imperial Age right now. Mista is fighting for his life against Imperial, Elite, Spearmen. Bombards coming out as well. 3 big Bombards sitting out the front. And Viper now looking to take an engagement here. He's got to be careful. These knights going to be moving through between the two spears as the spears now move back towards the bombards, get a pretty decent surround as the scouts get on top of it. They're going to try and focus down that bombard. There's no villagers out for them, but it looks like he's actually going to be picking apart the units. The Arbitria on the front line going to have a difficult time. They've got that extra melee armor going to be helping them out, but it's not going to be enough to be able to hold on right now as Viper looks like he might be going in for the victory here. Keep in mind, we are on match point right now. Viper is up in this series.
Viper's got the whole map. You guys can't see the
series,
minimap because my head's blocking it. But...
And he goes on to be the very first victor of the Genesis, the first Age of Empires 4 S-tier tournament.
Mista is through the worst. He actually neutralized the sacred site, so at least he's no longer on a timer.
You know what I wonder? Why did EGC TV not continue with the name Genesis? Why didn't they call Golden League Genesis too?
And you see Viper already has 45 towers with cannon emplacements over here. It's going to be a very difficult fight from this point on for Mista.
Genesis means the first? Okay, well whatever. Why didn't they go off of that name? Someone didn't go to church school? Why would I go to church school?
Wouldn't be able to find his way back in the series, and the Viper would be the rightful champion of Genesis. On this blip on the map for the journey of RTS esports, a moment that happens maybe once in a decade to decide who had the grit to push through it all. And I like to think that maybe, just maybe, somewhere that late night question between two friends was resolved. Who would win between the Viper and the Mista?
Of the very first S-tier Age of Empires 4 event, winning Genesis and taking the game by storm.
Wow. Wow. I like that video. I wish we have more videos like this. That was actually a cool video. Someone should do, like, dude, it'd be cool. Listen, I don't know what his plan is, but imagine if he would do this, like, what was the tournament after Genesis? There was another tournament, wasn't there? The Winter Series. No, what was it called? The Winter Steel Series, right. It'd be cool if he does one for that as well. But anyway, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, let me know what you thought. I thought it was a pretty cool... I like watching videos like this. It's like, even though this was only like 6-7 months ago, I mean, I missed it, right? Like, because, you know, I wasn't playing in it. But it's cool to see this, like, you know, stories from, like, people coming from different games and what people thought, like, this game is going to dominate and this game is going to dominate. It turns out StarCraft's dominating, so it is what it is, right? But... you know what would be funny? If people are now like, man, StarCraft 2 players dominate everything, and then in like 6 months we watch another video and there's no StarCraft 2 players. And it's all Minecraft players dominating the scene. That'd be good times. Either way, if you're watching on YouTube, let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. If you're watching on Twitch, let's keep going.